So right now, all over the world, millions of people are still singing a song called Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters. It hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 8 weeks. It became the first song led by a woman in K-pop to ever top that chart. It won a Golden Globe, then it won a Grammy. The first K-pop song to ever win one. And then a few weeks later, it won an Oscar. The movie it comes from, K-pop Demon Hunters, became the single most watched film in the history of Netflix. On the surface, it looks like the biggest overnight success that you have ever seen. But here's what almost nobody knows. The voice you're hearing on that song, the woman behind it, spent 12 years being told that she wasn't good enough. She got rejected from the one dream she built her entire life around. And she was even told that her voice, the exact voice the whole planet is singing to right now, was a flaw that she needed to fix. Her name is EJAE, and her story isn't really about K-pop or demons or even a hit song. It's actually one of the best real-life examples I have ever seen of something she says herself. Rejection is redirection. So let me tell you the real story behind K-pop Demon Hunters, because I think it might be the exact thing that some of you need to hear right now. To understand how big this comeback is, you have to understand how much she gave up first. EJAE, her real name is Kim Eun-jae, grew up loving K-pop. And here's a small detail to hold on to because it pays off big time later. As a kid, she actually got made fun of for liking it. She loved it anyway. Loved it so much that she started training to become a K-pop idol when she was 11 years old in Seoul, South Korea. She got accepted into SM Entertainment, one of the biggest, most legendary agencies in all of K-pop, back in 2003. And then she trained and trained for 12 years. She trained alongside girls who will go on to become Girls' Generation, one of the most famous groups in the world. She put in her own words, literal blood, sweat, and tears, all chasing one single goal: to debut as a K-pop idol, to finally be chosen. So think about that. 12 years from a child into a grown woman, doing the work every single day that nobody outside the building ever sees. And that's the first thing I want to talk about, because that's the part everyone skips. Before any of the gold, there were 12 years of work in a room with the lights off and nobody watching. What we see is the Oscar. We don't see the decade. Almost every overnight success you've ever admired is actually somebody quietly grinding for years before the world ever shows up. So if you're putting in the work right now and it feels like no one notices, good. That's not a sign you're failing. That's just what the early part looks like for everyone. And here's what made those 12 years even harder. The thing they kept telling her to fix. EJAE has a low, husky voice. And back then, that wasn't the sound that K-pop wanted. They wanted clean, pretty polished vocals, and hers weren't that. So they tried to change her voice, and she tried to give them what they wanted so badly that she pushed her own voice past its limits. She strained her vocal cords trying to sound like someone she wasn't, to the point where sometimes her voice would crack or give out completely. Think about that for a second. She was told that the most unique, identifiable thing about her actual voice, was a problem, and she believed them. So she tried to erase the one thing that made her her. I think a lot of us know that feeling that the real you isn't quite what the room wants. So you sand yourself down, you hide the weird parts, the loud parts, the too much parts, and you try to be the clean, acceptable version. But here's the thing, it almost never works, and it usually costs you something. For her, it literally damaged the instrument she'd need for the rest of her life. Remember that detail, because the voice they told her to fix is about to become the most important part of this whole story. But here's the brutal turn. After all of it, 12 years of training, and even straining to remake her own voice just to please them, EJAE still never debuted. She was considered for groups, considered for a solo career, and every single time it didn't happen. And then in 2015, SM let her go. So just imagine that for a second. The one thing you poured your entire life into since you were a kid, and the answer after 12 years is no. So there she is, dropped. Her dream gone. The thing she trained 12 years for, over. And this is where most stories end. This is the part where you'd actually understand and forgive someone for quitting completely. But watch what she does instead, because this is the redirection. With the idol door closed, EJAE moved to the United States and went to study at NYU. She'd always loved psychology. She even thought she might become a music therapist, which I think is really, really cool. She started messing around with making beats, and she fell in love with the underground SoundCloud scene. And she started singing on the soundtracks for Korean TV dramas, just to stay in music somehow. And through that, she started meeting actual songwriters. And here's a detail I love. One of them asked if she could top line, which is the term for writing the melody over a track. And she didn't even know what that word meant at the time. She had to have it explained to her. So think about where she is real quick. 12 years of training, and she's a beginner again, starting over at the bottom in a job she didn't even have the vocabulary for yet. And that takes a kind of humility that I think most people don't have. When the first dream dies, your ego wants you to either quit or demand that the world give you back exactly what you lost. But the people who actually make it are the ones who can walk into a brand new room and say, okay, I don't know how to do this yet. Teach me. Being willing to be a beginner again, especially after you were great at something else, is one of the rarest and most powerful things a person can do. EJAE did it. She let the closed door point her somewhere she would have never chosen on her own. And that somewhere turned out to be everything. She found a mentor, a songwriter named Andrew Choi, who heard something in her and started teaching her. He brought her to a songwriting camp back at SM, the same company that had let her go. And there, she wrote a song called Psycho. Get this. It was only the 5th song that she had ever written in her life. And that song got recorded by Red Velvet and became a massive hit. It topped Billboard's World Digital Songs chart. So the woman who couldn't get chosen to sing the songs turned out to be incredible at writing them. And she didn't stop there. She went on to write for some of the biggest names in K-pop, Twice, aespa, LE SSERAFIM, Red Velvet again. She quietly built one of the most respected songwriting careers in the entire industry for years, mostly behind the scenes, without the world knowing her name. And that's a lesson all on its own. The skill that ends up defining your life is often not the one that you set out to get. EJAE spent 12 years training to be a performer. And the thing that actually made her was a talent she discovered by accident in her 20s after the original plan fell apart. Your detour might not be a detour. It might be the actual road. Remember that. Which brings us to 2020 and a little project that nobody knew would become a phenomenon. EJAE got brought onto the music team for an animated movie called K-pop Demon Hunters, right near the very beginning. And her job was basically to help build the sound of the entire film, the musical DNA of it. And it was not glamorous. It was a grind. For some scenes, the team wrote close to 60 different demo versions of a song, throwing most of them away, just trying to find the one that worked. 60 versions for one scene. That's the work behind the magic. And as she's doing all of this, she's recording demo vocals herself, just rough guide versions of the songs, including one called Golden. Not meant to be the final thing. Not meant to be heard by millions of people, billions of people, just singing the demos for the team so they could hear them. But here's the moment. The director, Maggie King, heard those demos. She heard EJAE's voice, that low, husky voice that SM had once tried to fix, and she didn't hear a flaw. She heard the lead character. She asked EJAE to be the actual singing voice of Rumi, the heroine of the entire film. And I need you to feel how full circle that is. The voice that she was told to erase, that wasn't pretty enough. The voice that broke when she tried to change it. That was the voice a director chose to carry the whole movie. The exact thing she was rejected for became the exact thing that she was chosen for. That's the part that gives me the chills, because it means the flaw was never a flaw. It was just early. It was waiting for the right room. And here's where it gets even deeper. And honestly, where it becomes the most beautiful part of the whole thing. The character EJAE sings for, Rumi, is secretly hiding something. Rumi is a perfectionist who's terrified that if people see her real imperfect self, her demons, the part she's ashamed of, which, is an actual demon part, they'll reject her. So she hides them. She hides the marks. She hides the patterns. And the more she hides them, the more they grow, the more they come out, and the more they eat at her. The whole arc is about finally learning to accept herself, her flaws and all. Now think about who's singing that. EJAE has said straight up that she is Rumi, that hiding her flaws and trying to look perfect, terrified of being seen as not good enough, that was her entire trainee experience. The shame, the perfectionism, the exhaustion of pretending. She took the most painful part of her own life, the rejection, the insecurity about her voice, all 12 years of it, and she poured it directly into that character and those songs. And that is why it hits so hard. That's why Golden makes people cry. It isn't just a catchy pop song. It's a woman who spent 20 years being told she wasn't enough, finally singing about becoming exactly who she was always meant to be. The pain wasn't wasted. It became the material. So here's the lesson, and it's a big one. The thing you've been through, the rejection, the embarrassment, the years that felt wasted, that's not just damage. That can become the realest, most powerful thing you ever make. The people who move us aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who took the hard thing and turned it into something true. Your wound can become your gift. Hers did. And then the world caught up to her. K-pop Demon Hunters came out in the summer of 2025, and it didn't just do well, it exploded. It became the most watched film in Netflix's entire history. And Golden, the song she co-wrote and sang, went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 8 weeks. The film became the first ever to put 4 songs in the top 10 at the same time. And then the award season started, and it just didn't stop. Golden won Best Original Song at the Golden Globes. At that ceremony, EJAE gave a teary-eyed speech, and the line she used was the perfect summary of her entire life. Rejection is redirection. Then it won the Critics' Choice Awards. Then on February 1st, 2026, it won a Grammy, making it the first ever K-pop song to ever win one, in the Recording Academy's whole 68-year history. And then in March, it won the Oscar, Best Original Song, the first K-pop song to ever win an Academy Award. Standing on the Oscar stage, EJAE said something I can't stop thinking about. She said, "Growing up, people made fun of me for liking K-pop, but now everyone's singing our song, and all the Korean lyrics with it. The kid who got made fun of, the trainee who got dropped, the singer whose voice was wrong, standing there holding an Oscar while the whole world sings the music she made. It's amazing. It's beautiful." So let me bring this home, because her story is probably your story, if you let it be. EJAE didn't become a star by getting everything she wanted, getting everything right. She became a star because of everything she didn't get. Getting rejected is what pushed her into songwriting, which made her bigger than the idol path ever could have. The dream dying is what made the real dream possible. Rejection wasn't the end of her path, it was the path. And that voice, the husky, imperfect, fix-it voice, that voice now on a Grammy-winning, Oscar-winning #1 song that hundreds of millions of people love, the Flaw was the gold the whole time. So if you're sitting there right now and you just got rejected from something you wanted so badly, a job, the school, a person, your dream, I need you to hear this. That door closing might be the redirection that leads to the thing that you're actually meant to do. And if there's a part of you that you keep hiding, that you've been told is too much or, not right, not pretty enough, that might just be your husky voice. That might be the exact thing that makes you golden. EJAE spent 12 years being told no, and it turned out the world was just getting ready to sing along. So, what's the rejection in your life that might actually be a redirection? And what's the part of you that you've been hiding, that the world is just waiting to hear?